Hi everyone, my name is Glenn Bartley and welcome to another YouTube video. Sorry, it's been a while since my last one. It's been a busy tour season, traveling all over South America and Antarctica and all kinds of places, which means I have lots of photos to process. And I thought, what better way to start getting some new videos than to show you a good amount of how I process my images. Obviously, in a short video, I can't get into everything in huge detail. That's why I wrote my ebook post processing. But I do want to share sort of the main nuts and bolts of how I go through my images and how I process them from raw to final product. So that's what we're going to try to do here today. And one of the most important tools that I use, that I really encourage, folks that come on my workshops or other photographers that I meet, is it's really important when you're a bird photographer. You're taking a lot of frames. I was just in Colombia for a month. I'm sure I must have shot minimum 20,000 frames, probably much more than that. And it's just such a nightmare if you don't have a good tool to go through those images and whittle it down to just your keepers. I only kept about 500 images from that trip. So, maybe 5%, let's say, probably even less than that. The tool that I use, which I think is by far the best available, is called Breezebrowser. Now, unfortunately, Breezebrowser is not available for Mac users. I'm sorry about that. For Mac, I think the best program available is called Photo Mechanic. I see people on my tours sometimes using Lightroom to cull their images, and if that's what you choose to do, that's fine. I'm not going to tell you not to do that. But in my opinion, it is really a drain on your time. Unless you have, even with a really fast machine, it's so slow to go through your images. Culling can be a nightmare, which means it's a backlog right from the very start where you're not getting through your images in an efficient manner. So I really think you should check in with yourself to make sure that you have an efficient way to go through your images and get it from taking 1,000 pictures of it in a day to keeping your best 50 and having a good tool to do that so that you know that those are your best ones. For me, Breezebrowser is completely mandatory part of my workflow. So let me show you a little bit about Breezebrowser. Here I have the program open, and I'll give you a little bit of a tour here. We can open the folder that we want to look for images in up here, and then we have a few different visibility windows here. We can see thumbnails with a larger preview, or we can see the full image. I'll show you how I work mostly between these two visibility options. But first, let's get a folder of images opened here. So I'll just click on this, and I've just got to navigate on my computer to where I keep my images. So bear with me here. I'll go ahead and get some pictures from my most recent trip to Colombia. So I'll go ahead and click on that, and you can see right away, very fast to open up everything. And I've got us in the thumbnail view right now. So we can see different size thumbnails. I have them on extra large now. I could change that down to large or even the small thumbnails, but it's up to you depending on what you're trying to do. I use this as my just kind of general file browser when I'm looking for files or sorting through a folder. I use Breezebrowser to do that as well. But for our purposes today, let's imagine that we had just been out shooting and we had taken all these pictures. We need to see them a lot bigger than this. So I think we're going to go ahead and use the film strip view here. Now you can see we've got a full nice sized picture here. And my preferred way of going through images in Breezebrowser, what I often do is I set it to be the small thumbnails, and I make it so that there's 3 across. And that way, if I hold down the Shift key and hit the down arrow, it automatically selects 4 images because it's going from this file here down to this one. And the reason I do that is because Breezebrowser allows you to compare 4 images at a time. And so if I was to hit, I could either right click over here and compare the images just by clicking compare images, or I could see the keyboard shortcut. It's a really easy one to remember, Control Z. You could think Control Zoom. So I've got these 4 images. I'm gonna hit Control Z, and boom, boom. It's just all of them are right up there. So it allows me to kind of do 100% preview and see. I've already called this folder, so these were my keepers, but if you were out shooting and you took a whole bunch of similar images of a species, like here, for example, here's 2 that are really similar, and I've got another one down here that's similar. We could zoom in on them and decide, which one is the best, or is there one that's slightly better than the other. And that allows you really to go through and make sure you have your best images. So to me, that the speed of that and being able to compare 4 at a time makes Breezebrowser just the best tool to use. Typically what I do when I open up a folder of images from a day's shoot or from a photo trip, I start by just going through them without zooming, and I just am looking for obvious ones that I want to delete. And when I see one that I obviously want to delete, I just get rid of them. I'll do that possibly 2, maybe even 3 times before I'll start zooming in, because it doesn't make sense to be zooming in on a lot of images that you know you're going to throw away. So try to kind of think of it like working from a big broad brush to a finer brush. And ultimately, you want to delete a bunch of images and then get down to zooming in. Also, the other thing that Breezebrowser is great at, now it's not unique in being great at this, many programs are good at batch renaming, but Breezebrowser does have a nice interface for it. You could also do that in Bridge or Lightroom or a variety of other programs. But what I like to do, depending on the day's shoot, if I've been shooting the same species throughout the day, I'll usually rename, once I've gone through and deleted a bunch of the obvious deleters, I'll usually go through and rename the folder so that all of the same species are together. The reason I think this is important, here's a scenario for you. Let's say you've been taking pictures at a tropical lodge where there's lots of different species of hummingbirds coming. And you're going to wind up photographing the same species throughout the day several times. The tendency for most people when you're looking through your images, every time that species showed up, you're going to keep the 1 or 2 best ones. And maybe that species came in 10 or 15 times even. So that means you're going to keep 15, 20, 30 images of this one species. If you rename the species and they're all together, you kind of forget about, well, he came in each time. It's just, okay, these are all of my green crown brilliants. They're all together and I only really want to keep the best 10. So it'll just help you to be more ruthless with culling, which is, I think, really important, because if you get bogged down here, it's going to mean you're going to get bored and you're going to get frustrated, and where you really want to put your attention is later in Photoshop. So we want to have a really good way to color images and a logical methodology to do that. Now, a lot of this is covered again in my ebook, Post-Processing Simplified. So if you want more detail on this or any of the other stuff that we'll cover in this or the other future photo processing videos, that's a good resource manual for you. So let's say that we had renamed our files. Well, actually, I should show you first how to rename files. So let's say we have got all these Andean cocks of the rocks here. Now, of course, I've already renamed them, but I'm just going to show you how it's done. All you need to do is select all the files that are similar, and this would be another good time to go to the thumbnails view, because it's really easy to tell that these are all the same species, and it's just a little bit easier to navigate through the files. So once we're here, again, you can right-click and go to Batch Rename, or you can start to remember these shortcuts, Shift-Control-B. I'm going to go ahead and use the shortcut. And you'll see that it comes up with this little dialog box. And the way that I like to rename my files is I just type in the name, and then I just use this code that Breezebrowser has, %n, and that gives it a numerical number here, and you probably would want to start at 1 in this case. So you can see mine are just being named to the same thing because I've already done that. But let's just say, for example, that I was going through a folder and I had shot these birds first, and I went ahead and renamed them. That's how I usually do it. I'm going to start at 1. And then later in the folder, I found, oh, those guys came in again. I shot some more of them. Breezebrowser is kind of cool. It allows you to continue numbering from the last time. So it'll know that I left off. I had already done 4, so it knows to pick up at number 5 here. So that's kind of nice. That's a nice feature. So there we go. So that's how you'd go through your folder and rename all the species. Breezebrowser, your goal, like let's say you download a card of images from the day and you see that you took 1,000 photos. Your goal is going to be to leave Breezebrowser with no more than 100 photos. I want you to think about deleting 90% of what you shoot. Of course, it depends on the shoot and how many pictures you took. And of course, if one bird came in only one time and you only got one frame, you're going to keep that photo. But I want you to start to kind of think of that metric, 90% delete ratio. So Breezebrowser is, in my opinion, the best tool for achieving that task. And I think we'll cut it off here. Actually, I'll show you a couple more little things now that I think about it. One neat tool that Breezebrowser has is the Magnifier Tool. And I just need to find it here because I always use the shortcut to get there. There it is, Shift-Control-M. And so you can zoom in on things that way. I have my magnifier set. I went into the preferences and made it so that if I double click on the image, it automatically pops up. So there's some neat little things with Breezebrowser that you can do in order to go through your images. The goal is to come out with your files totally renamed and no more than 10% of what you shot. So think about that. And by the way, Breezebrowser has a free trial available, so if you're not familiar with it, go ahead and download the free trial online, and I think it gives you 30 days. You can test it out. You can follow along with this video. You can follow along with my ebook. And honestly, I think that if you're not using this program, it's going to save you tons of time, and it's going to make your processing more fun and give you more time to spend on the part of processing that requires a lot more effort, which is converting your raw files, which we'll cover next, and more specific stuff in Photoshop, which maybe we'll cover in part 3. So thanks for watching this part 1, culling in Breezebrowser, and I'll be back shortly with processing raw files.